Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues. And with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on Series 9, Episode 8 of Doctor Who, the Zygon Inversion. And if I had any qualms after the last episode, throw that crap out the window. you know? Oh my God, wow. I don't even know where to begin with this episode. I'm not going to even bother describing what happens in it. A lot of people in doing reviews recap it. Forget it. Go watch it. Just go watch it. The term tour de force comes to mind, describing Peter Capaldi at one sort of penultimate moment in this episode, and it brought me to tears. It really got emotional, and it emotionally rocked me because I'm somebody, I feel like Capaldi was channeling his own emotions and thoughts and feelings on the subject, the subject matter, this idea of war, this concept of innocence being murdered, and taking it all back to the Doctor's own feelings and thoughts and emotions, calling back to what he had to do with the Time War, with Gallifrey and all this stuff, making it very fictionalized but very raw and visceral and in the moment and true. And it was just like, I believed every word he said. I felt every word he said. They mirror my own emotions, my thoughts and emotions on useless slaughter of life, and this idea of tyranny, and this idea of, always trying to have the best of the best over everyone else, and, just anti-peace, anti-peaceful coexistence. And even now, I mean, it rocked me emotionally. It really got to the core of me. And the entire sequence, I mean, it's this episode, I had some qualms with the first part of this, the Zygon Invasion, and this episode wiped the slate clean and then physically rose the bar of excellence, of majesty, of awe and wonder in the history of Doctor Who. We've seen Doctor Who raised to these heights before. If you followed the series from the classic series to the modern, there are so many moments that get under your skin and change the way you look at the world. It's not just entertainment. I mean, it is at the forefront. It's an entertainment program. It's, fantasy, sci-fi, all this kind of stuff. But with shows like this, look at Star Trek, the original series. They could talk about the Vietnam War without it being a direct reference to it. They could talk about the racial divide that was, unfortunately very strongly in existence at the time when this program would be put on TV, and you could see a white man kissing a black woman, the first interracial kiss. That's the kind of impetus behind an episode like this, a commentary behind an episode like this. The idea of the Zygons trying to invade, and there's so many of them that, it's almost, I hate to be the guy to go there, but it's almost like an allegory for the whole Muslim thing, You can't blame an entire culture on the wildest radicals and terrorists that just happen to conform to that culture. I hate to say it, but it's like, treating America like the small minority of white supremacists that are in existence. You can't judge an entire culture, and that's very much through the looking glass, under the microscope, the Zygon culture. There are so many who just want to live and coexist and be peaceful, and it was just amazing. It was sheer awesomeness. Like, no superlatives I can utter are even going to touch the face of how incredible this was. How incredible this episode, this story, the culmination. I mean, even Jenna Coleman, it's so bittersweet, the idea of Jenna Coleman being gone from this series in none too long a time beyond this episode, because this is the sheer best. I mean, if I say Peter Capaldi was a tour de force in this episode. I have to say Jenna Coleman nearly matched him in the going back and forth, the acting out these two characters, Clara herself, and more so do we see her as Bonnie, the Zygon equivalent. And from the very commanding nature of that Zygon sort of form, from the emotion behind her expression as Capaldi is unleashing this speech to try to get at the heart of Kate Stewart and Bonnie, this Zygon. I mean, this is the best, I want to say hour, but it's like 45 minutes, whatever it is. But I'll say, rounding up, the best hour of television I have seen in a long time. And that even includes every episode of Series 9 thus far. It's been up there, man. From the whole 12th Doctor Davros thing at the start of Series 9, I mean, it's just amping up and up and up. And even for all its faults, you have an episode like this. This isn't just a home run. This is knocking a ball out of the ballpark, and it's going around the world a couple of times before that thing even comes close to landing. It's going to take Superman to catch up with that sucker. Just wow. Just wow. All kinds of wow. And I mean, I didn't think it could get any better than having Unit involved in the Osgoods, parentheses around that S. Spoiler warning. But I mean, the Osgood box, what that amounted to, calling it back to Gallifrey, calling it back to the War Doctor, calling it back to the Time War. It's been very much a sort of engaging thing since the series came back in 2005. It is tantamount to who the Doctor is now, but in a sense for all time as well. And I like that, for people who love the classic series like me, Whovians and everything like that, we had hallmarked in this episode, William Hartnell, like sort of his portrait overhanging what was supposed to be the codes to find the Osgood box and all that kind of stuff. I mean, little things like that, Kate's phrase about, 5 swift shots. I forget the exact phrasing, but of course we know what that calls back to. And just that vibe of like, it's a modern Doctor Who framework, but at the same time there are so many elements of it that call back to the classic. You can very much see sort of that, Unit family vibe in the modern sense because of Kate Stewart, because of Unit, because of Osgood, kind of being a little more than the Benton of the era, if you will. And I love, just to talk about the end, I really love that the Doctor extended to Osgood, one of the Osgoods, the choice, come along with me. I mean, this is something as a fan I had thought about. I would love to see Osgood as a companion, but at the same time, I feel like where this episode leaves that whole equation, this is where I want Osgood. The Osgoods. This is where I want her. This is the purpose I want to see her continue to serve, and I really hope we get to revisit Kate Stewart and Unit and Osgood and all that kind of stuff, because you can't sort of just pass over Gemma Redgrave's being in this episode as Kate Stewart. The lineage there, you feel it in the history of Doctor Who. She lives up to being the Brigadier's daughter and commanding the same kind of presence he does. And even though, I've heard some people talk about, well, she seems a little less certain about things, but no. Not after this episode. Not after those, 5 shots swiftly, or whatever the phrase is again, as I say. No. You believe it. If you don't, you're crazy. If you don't believe she is, Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart's daughter, I can't help you. Nobody can. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to be stuttering and, completely just going on and on, rambling on and on, ad nauseum, ad infinitum about this episode, and it's just sheer awesomeness. It's greatness. Again, like I say, it's surpassed. I would almost even go so far as to say, and if you've been watching my videos talking about Series 9 thus far, I would even go so far as to say, for me, who thus far, none of these episodes, as great as they have been, as enjoyable as they have been, nothing has touched the opening two-parter with the Doctor and Davros. This is one better. This is like 10 better, how I'm left with it. This was incredible television. It was more than television. It transcends mere entertainment, this episode, for me. And I really feel like I'm left by the end of this. This is the best Doctor moment I've ever seen. I think I've ever seen. And I'm putting it right up against moments like, Tom Baker's Genesis of the Daleks dilemma. Can I become the monster? Can I become the villain by wiping out a race, like the Daleks? Thus becoming them, becoming like them. This is greater than even moments like the modern series episode Dalek, where the Doctor had to face his own almost succumbing to that. I think it's better than any speech I've ever seen. For me personally, as a viewer, as a Doctor Who fan, as a Whovian, I think it's better than anything I can think of off the top of my head in the history of Doctor Who that I have thus far witnessed. I know that's saying a lot, but that's how I feel. I can only honestly represent how I'm left feeling as an individual, as my own person. And this, it's right up there with, in the modern sense, the most emotional episode that I've seen prior to this was probably Vincent and the Doctor, as far as really affecting me emotionally, and this surpasses even that for me. Down to telling a great, entertaining and riveting story about these Zygons, looking at them as a culture, using it as an allegory to look at the cultures of our own world, and all these things wrapped up into just tour de force powerhouse performances. And a speech to slay all speeches that came before it, of championing peaceful coexistence over bloodshed. It's a very simple, yet no less meaningful concept. And it rocked my world. It's going to seem cliche and ridiculous. Other than you, the viewer, nobody's going to know about this between you and I, and maybe a couple of my neighbors, since the walls are paper thin. But to this episode, I applaud. I applaud Peter Capaldi. I applaud Jenna Coleman and everyone involved in its production, because this is why I love shows like Doctor Who and like Star Trek and those kinds of things, because they can just tell strongly emotional, powerful stories, and they can be entertaining, but they can also be, filled with a great sense of commentary and duty to humanity, to the human condition. It's like when you think of, in classic literature sense and play sense, the Shakespearean aspect of putting humanity under a microscope and making it understandable, understanding the emotions and the weight and the torrential floods those things represents: life, death, existence, the universe, all these kinds of things. That's what this episode was all about for me. And adding in the sci-fi flavor of the timey-wimey time travel and everything like that, the Zygons, the aliens, and all that stuff, everything that was at stake, the just amazing characterizations and the performances, as I say. It was just like, this episode was having your cake and eating it too. I'll leave it there. That's all I can say about it. I would certainly love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of this particular episode, the Zygon Inversion, by itself. Standalone episode, even without the whole first half of it. which certain aspects of it did feel wonky to me on first viewing, and, you know, got a little more used to it on subsequent viewings, that kind of thing. But this episode, I mean, added together, it's that much more, but you don't even need that first half for this to just be tantamount, as far as I'm concerned. And I'd be highly interested to hear, especially if you happen to be somebody who wasn't as moved by this episode as I was. Just let me know why. Let me know why maybe you weren't. You know, what aspects about it maybe fell flat or were lesser to you than the greatness I, you know, had washing over me as I watched it. And kind of perfect timing, too, because as the mail delivery, the post delivery came today, I got my very own Clara Oswald 5.5-inch figure. 12th Doctor is on the way as of the time of this recording. And yesterday, actually, Series 9, Part 1, first 6 episodes, and just 2 weeks after, the last one included on here, what the hell was the name of it? The Woman Who Lived, the two-parter, the Maisie Williams two-parter. Just 2 weeks after that aired, first aired, by the way, it's already available in the States at my local Walmart. So it's like, going to be jumping into those episodes, get my sis on board. She's a Whovian thoroughly as well, and it's going to be great times. I can't wait to get the 12th Doctor figure. Maybe I'll show him next time, such like that. But yeah, this just rocked my ever-loving world. And I'm excited for the next one. So, otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.